So I was going to say at some point there is a sort of acceptance that is preached in Stoicism. You have to accept certain things.
Yeah.
You may not question them. And when we talk from a rhetorical approach, the argument becomes dogmatic. Sort of.
Well, yeah. I mean, dogma gets a bad rap. Um,
Dogma gets a bad rap. Okay.
Dogma gets a bad rap because it has turned into this pejorative dogmatic,
Hmm.
right? Dogma just means belief, and we all have beliefs.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Um, and I think it's fair to say if you're a Stoic, you have to believe some certain things in order to call yourself a Stoic. Now, that might be the line might be different for some people. Like, I don't have a problem if you think the idea of God is bunk and you call yourself an atheist, but you kind of have to believe in the universe. Um, that is an you know what I mean.
You have to have
Um,
some beliefs, right?
you have to have some beliefs in common with the Stoics to say that you're a Stoic.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
I couldn't call myself a Christian if I well, I mean, but the problem is that people do call themselves Christians and don't believe certain things, right? And there are people out there who call themselves Stoics and don't believe certain things. Where that line is going to be weird, and how many of those things that you don't believe or do believe. Like if I throw out God, that might be okay. But if I throw out God and uh, virtue ethics as a whole, as this one big chunk, I'm going to start to have some problems calling myself a Stoic. I might get into, or if I throw out aspects or I change them in such a way where I don't think virtue is the only good and I think wealth is a good or having a lot of money is good, I might call myself a dollar sign Stoic, Silicon Valley Stoic. If I replace the idea of that women are as rational and human as men are
Yeah.
and are fully human beings, I might start calling myself a broic. I might have morphed into this different form of stoicism that really isn't stoicism. If I think stoicism is all about emotional repression and just being a big tough guy who kicks really hard, that might be in that broic area,
Yeah.
right? So there are some things that you have to believe. I think there are a certain number of things
Hmm.
that you have to be in this nebulous term stoicism. Back to the God question and stoicism and what you if you need to believe it.
Hmm.
There are a couple issues. One is someone might come in with an idea of God that the Stoics aren't. So we're the Stoics weren't talking about,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So we have to know what the Stoics said. And if you come in and we often get this from um, community members, where they think they're talking about the Christian God because that's the one that we're all used to.
Hmm.
Uh, guy in a guy in a cloud or some being above us. Um, so we need to first know what the Stoics thought, and if you don't like it, fine, but you got to know what you don't like before you decide. Like if I'm talking about Jesus and this person over here is talking about the Stoic God, they're not talking about the same thing.
Hmm.
So if the person comes over here and goes, "Do you believe in God?" and I go, "Well, no, that's crazy. Like I don't believe a guy in the cloud. Well, that's not the God I believe in. I believe in this version of God. Well, I don't believe in a guy that uh, changed Moses's heart, you know, and killed all the Egyptians. That's not the God I'm talking about. So you have these different ideas of what a god is, and if you're gonna reject the Stoic god, you have to know what the Stoic god is.
He was right. He was ultimately like, I'm not, this is not a classroom, and this is, albeit it is a different sort of a classroom, this is, I'm not here to get homework from you. And I remember telling that man that this sort of a discussion requires a degree of homework, because if you have not read up on the concepts, if you don't know what we are talking about, then there's no point talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine to, I mean, it's Facebook, so it's fine to come in and just state your opinions, you know. Um, but to get mad that someone else has another opinion about something that they know, it's an odd. I've done it. I mean, we've all done it. Like where we go, well, you know. But it is weird that you join a page, and this isn't just me bitching about Facebook, but I just bring it back to Stoicism. It's weird that you get pissed off. You join a page called Cynic and Stoic, and then you come in, and they say the Stoics believe this, and they go, "That's bullshit." Well, okay, that might be bullshit. That's one thing. It might be bullshit, but it's weird. It's not bullshit that the Stoics believe this, and it might be bullshit. So, like, if I, if I said, if I was talking about history, and I said the British were part of World War II, and someone came in and said that's bullshit, that's a weird thing to say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if I said the British should have been part of World War II, should have joined the war, and someone said that's bullshit, they have a case there, but they don't have a case about what Stoicism is. There's the thing that Stoics said. You can disagree with it, but you can't disagree that this is what Stoics said.
Basically, yes.
And you should have a good reason to not like what the Stoics said.
Last question, which is about self-therapy, the modern
Yeah.
usage of Stoicism itself. As I understand, you are a person who has applied this practice in your personal life, and you've shared that it has helped you in a certain degree. So, without getting too personal, I just want to understand what is CBT and how is it related to Stoicism?
I am not a therapist, and I don't know a whole lot about CBT other than what I've read about it. With that caveat, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. It is a form of therapy that takes some ideas of Stoicism as their starting point. Part of that is the emotion, the Stoic theory of emotions, which is basically, and these aren't technical terms. Let's just use the terms feelings, cognition, and emotion. Different writers, different people will use different terms. I'm using those just as concepts. And then I will give you the technical terms afterwards. So there is something that happens. Let's say someone jumps out at you and to frighten you. So that's a stimulus. Actually, I'll use my favorite one. I'll use the bear one. Okay? This is my favorite one. This comes from William James, who's an American psychologist and philosopher. So you go out and you see a bear, right? Now, the way that most people think emotions work like this: bear, shit scared, like that, right? Or bear, scared, action.
Run away or something.
Think about it later,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, bear, scared, cognition. I gotta run. The Stoics say what happens is you see the bear, and unbidden come certain feelings. Okay? Your heart races, your stomach cramps up, you might pee or poo yourself. Fight or flight, right? Then there's a moment where your body says, hold on, what's going on? Oh shit, a bear. Your body knows beforehand what's going on. And you think, oh, there's a bear. What should I do? And then you choose to have a reaction, right? And part of that reaction is an emotion. So we can think of it this way. We can go, if that happened in my yard, running is the best option, right? If I'm a zookeeper and I see a bear, running doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I see bears all the time. So I see the bear. Oh, Smokey's doing fine. He looks hungry. I better get him some food. I like Smokey.
Yeah.
You know, that's the bear keeper's reaction.
Yeah.
My reaction is, why is there, see a bear? Why is there a bear in my yard? I got to get away from this thing. That's the proper, right? It's contextual. Emotions are contextual to their situation. Stoic terms, there's a proto-passion, protopatha, which is pre-feeling, like that's the feeling aspect, and that comes unbidden. There's a moment of cognition, and sometimes we skip right over that aspect. Sometimes we can slow it down. Sometimes we don't. And then there is a passion, an emotion. When we choose correctly, when I see a bear in my yard and I choose to run away and be scared, that is a good emotion because it's contextual, right? Because I can't deal with a bear in my yard. When the zookeeper sees the bear and says, oh, I like Smokey, he's a great guy, you know, he's really friendly, he looks like he needs some food, he's in a good mood, that's the proper emotion. That's a eupatha, good emotion. If the zookeeper ran away, that would be out of fear, most likely. He improperly thinks the bear is going to maul him. And so he's working out of fear. So that's roughly, that's not great at all, but that's roughly the idea.
So that's the incorrect emotion. That's incorrect processing of improper.
Right. The wrong emotion for me is, I like bears. I'm going to go give them a hug.
Yeah. It makes sense.
I'm happy that there's a bear in my yard. That's the wrong emotion to have from seeing a bear in my yard. The wrong emotion for a zookeeper is like to run away and scream, because he should be used to having bears in the zoo.
So you take this idea of contextual emotions and you apply it to yourself for self-therapy.
Right. So you apply it to yourself. So it's not about repressing emotions. It's about having the right emotion for the context, for the given context. I shouldn't drive angry. I shouldn't be angry at all for the Stoics. But cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of using that idea on bigger issues. Anxiety, symptoms of it works well for anxiety, depression, symptoms of PTSD. These are all kind of emotional issues. So you might use premeditatum malorum techniques to get rid of your anxiety. If you're a very anxious person about talking on the phone, you might tell yourself, okay, well, what's going to happen if this phone call goes wrong? And if it does go wrong, what can I do? So you might say, well, the worst thing that can happen is someone's going to like think I'm an idiot. And if that happens, they think I'm an idiot. But I never have to talk to this person again. Like, what's so wrong with having someone think I'm an idiot? And then you make the phone call. Then you look back. Did the person think that I was an idiot? I don't know. They didn't seem like they did. You know. So that's how you would use it in that context.
Best estimation of your situation.
What's that?
Best estimation of the situation. As well you.
Yeah. Or what am I scared of that's going to happen? Doing it and coming up with a plan. Like, what am I going to do if I get anxious? I need to be alert to those feelings. Going through with it, and then checking back and say, did the person think I was an idiot? You know, that's the whole process. So I work with people that have cognitive liabilities. And one of the gentlemen, every once in a while, he just gets angry. There's no telling. I have ideas of, they're basically nonverbal, so it's hard to tell what's going on, but there's some things. And when he gets angry, sometimes, at one point, I got a little too close to him. You're supposed to stay away. I got a little too close, trying to calm him down, to try to de-escalate the situation. And just out of nowhere, he was just letting me know, you're too close. I don't want you here. And he took a swing at me. It happens. Not a big deal. He didn't really hurt me. I mean, it hurt, but it didn't, it wasn't as bad as it could be. If I had gotten angry at that point because someone hit me, that's an issue. So I couldn't get angry. And it didn't even miff me. But that's because I had a long process of like deconstructing my anger to the point where I'm not going to get angry at that point. To the point where I've oriented myself to the proper emotion for that moment, because it's my knee-jerk reaction. My knee-jerk reaction is no longer get angry and yell. My action was, this person is hurting and I need to figure out how to de-escalate this situation. Like, there's no reason getting punched needs to make you angry.
What is pathos?
What is what?
Pathos. If I'm not.
Pathos? Pathos. Suffering. It is. It's a lot of things. So, remember when I said the soul is the source of movement? What that means, quite literally, for the Stoics, and this is wrong, this is something that you can reject from the Stoics, but for the Stoics, it was a passion is your soul fluttering in your body. Okay. It is a disturbance of the soul. Okay. It means that your soul is messed up somehow. Now we can abstract that out and say your psyche, your emotional, your emotional sense is off. Is So passion is suffering.
Hmm.
Now we can say further that a passion is an incorrect judgment about a situation.
The improper reaction.
Right. A passion is an incorrect emotion for the context. So we're at different levels here of what a pathos is. So when we look back at Epictetus, uh, men are not, what is it? We are not, we're not disturbed by things, but our thoughts of things.
Our estimation of them. We are not
That's
disturbed by
quite,
them
he's
because
quite literally saying our minds are not disturbed by the actual things, but what we think about them. Or, as Marcus Aurelius puts it, the 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 quality of our soul is dyed by the color of our thoughts. Which means if we constantly are angry and sad, or I don't want to say sad, if we're constantly angry or let's say it, depressed. I had depression, so I'm going to say it, depressed or greedy or any of these kind of negative emotions. And depression's negative. Let's not get over there. The depression's negative. It's not fun being depressed.
agreed.
But if we're constantly having those feelings, the quality of our lives is going to be reduced. If we're constantly scared or fearful, the quality of our lives and the quality of our character is going to be reduced. So we want to have the good emotions, and I'll go over what the good emotions they actually the good emotions are joy, which is wanting what you have, desiring what you have, caution, correctly thinking something is going to hurt you. This is a rough estimate of what these things are. Joy, caution, and wish. Properly wanting something that is good in the future.
The virtuous aim. What is in my control? What is in my power? Like you talked about
Yeah.
previously.
What I actually can achieve, and it would actually be a good thing. And that's virtue. You want to be a good person. What comes with being a good person was what brings you joy. And what's truly bad is being a bad person. And that you should be cautious around that. Like, you should be cautious of getting yourself in situations where you will choose bad actions, being a bad person.
But sometimes we cannot choose our situations.
Sometimes you can't, and that's fine. But we have to learn.